Hey guys, welcome back to the Trevor May Baseball channel. I'm your host, Trevor May, as always. I was looking back through some of my old YouTube baseball related stuff, and I noticed that I have a My Pitches and How I Throw Them video up from last offseason that has a bunch of things that have now changed since the recording of that video. So I wanted to do a little update video for 2019, things that I learned about myself this past year, and try to communicate that to you and give you a little bit more insight into why I made some of the decisions I made. Now, first off, let's talk about the fastball. I throw a four-seam fastball, as I said in the past video. However, I said that I used to throw a two-seam to certain guys in certain counts, and that is no longer true. I throw a true four-seam as high carry as humanly possible. I stay at the top of the zone. If you have watched my intent video, I talk a lot about a spots diagram, me deciding what I want to throw and where. This is just building on more of the specifics of those pitches that I've chosen and how I changed my grips in order to make them move the way that they move. So first of all, I talked about throwing a two-seam fastball on the outside of the seams last year in certain situations. I no longer do that. Again, that is for run. More often than not, a two-seam fastball runs or has a little bit of arm side downward movement. A one-seam here or here, only pulling down on the one seam, and then there's variations turned that certain guys throw. It gives you more of a diving action for guys who don't necessarily throw a high carry fastball. And then there's the straight four seam with little variations on that. Sometimes you want to cut it, sometimes you want to run it a little bit more, because there are three ways we're actually trying to get hitters to miss pitches or miss hit pitches: underneath, on top, or to the side. You throw a sweeping breaking ball that breaks away from a bat and the length of the bat doesn't actually reach where the ball is. That is probably the most rare, but that is a type. So my four-seam fastball has not changed. The way I throw my four-seam fastball has not changed from year to year, but my usage went up. The reason for that is because I felt it was like my most effective pitch and my closest to an elite pitch that I have. If you watch my all of my strikeout video that is also on this channel, you'll see that the vast majority of those strikeouts were on fastballs. Before moving on to our off-speed pitches, let's touch really quickly on some examples about a carry fastball. Here, this is a fastball up and away 0-2 to Yasiel Puig that you can really see on the TV. Almost looks like it has a cut action, but in reality, that is a ball staying on plane really, really well. And you can see by a foul tip that is actually swung under. Now, because of the increase in velocity, carry becomes that much more effective, right? This last year, my average fastball was 94.1. My average fastball this year was 95.6. There was an increase of velocity that made the fastball in the zone and up in the zone even more effective than it was before, which made me rely on it more. So I kind of did away with the trying to make a fastball move and more with a let's command this thing well, and let's stay in these areas and see how much success that we can have with it. Here's another prime example of the carry fastball working up into a righty. Another pitch that is very effective and hard to hit. Then moving on, last year I explained my knuckle curveball, which involved my finger on the outside of the horseshoe here. The label is usually on the inside because when you put it on the outside, it's easier to be seen by hitters. With my thumb, like kind of gripping that seam on the back side of the ball, and then my full knuckle being down on the inside of this seam here. So that is what it looks like. This is what I started with at the beginning of the year, and I since transitioned to taking my finger off the ball turning the horseshoe a little bit more in and going closer to a slider grip. This used to be my old slider grip with the horseshoe kind of cocked. Here's the horseshoe here, you turn it here. This used to be my slider. It was turning into a cutter, a little bit of a baby slider as they call it. Low movement, kind of an average pitch, not a lot of control of it. And I transitioned into going to the other side of the horseshoe, closer to a curveball grip, holding it a little bit deeper to make it harder. And it turned basically into a harder version of my curveball. A lot more depth on the pitch and a lot less sweep. So my curveball was always very high depth, but a lower velocity, high 70s, mid 70s at times. And what happened as I increased my velocity this year with a lot of the workout stuff I was doing, my curveball started to increase in velocity, and that caused the break on that pitch to reduce. When I switched the grip on my slider to this pitch, the changes were apparent very quickly. The break on my slider tripled. The velo dropped a little bit on it, but not enough to warrant any sort of fear to throw the pitch. So I had a hard breaking ball for the first time really in my career, and my curveball started to meld into that slider. As time went on and I got feel for one, they started to become the same pitch. So there was a point in the year where the curveball was starting to get into the low 80s, the break was lowering, and it wasn't hard enough to break as little as it was breaking, and it was easier to track for hitters. And as a lot of you may know, there were a couple times during the year where the curveball hurt me because it was in that situation. And that's when I switched to almost throwing the harder version of the curveball, or the slider is what do we call it, more often. This is an ideal use of my curveball, okay? This is a pitch thrown in 2018 against Carlos Tochi, I believe his name is. This was 9 pitches already in the at bat. I wanted to come back with the curveball, and as I say, I throw heaters up, so I need a pitch that goes off of that pitch in order to get a swing and miss. So here it is. Now, as you could see, 77 miles an hour on the velocity. That's pretty good. 77, 78 is where I wanted that pitch to go to get maximum drop on it. Had a good 12-6 break on it, and I got a swing and miss, and it was in the zone. That's an ideal situation for the curveball. Unfortunately, that 77 turned into 81, and that break was reduced by about 30 or 40%. So that makes the pitch less effective. So I needed to make a choice on another pitch. Now, next, we have an ideal pitch to Ramon Laureano. This is another pitch that's a strike. It's very well located. If you go back and look at my spots diagram, this is a spot that I want to be able to hit with my slider constantly. You're going to see the velo is a little bit harder, and the break is very, very similar, but more of a slider break. So that is perfectly placed. It's 83 miles an hour plus 6 on the velo. The break is pretty similar. It's a little bit smaller, but it breaks like a curveball, and it still has that depth that I want. So if I threw a fastball up and away in the mid to high 90s and then threw that slider down and away, it's going to be a very effective pitch for me. And it was. I would say that was a very well located pitch, very well executed pitch, especially 1-2. Another change to grips I made this year was on my changeup. It was pretty subtle. It was honestly changing from a 4-seam grip on my changeup, was literally my 4-seam fastball with my fingers positioned exactly the same way, except just turned over the side to reduce the velocity. The spin rate of this pitch is still in the low 2000s, which is high for a changeup, which means I have a high carry changeup. The spinning axis is also really efficient, meaning the ball stays on plane. I get swings and misses underneath the changeup. The most effective part about my changeup is the change in velocity. It would be high 80s, sometimes even into the mid 80s, which was at least 10 mile an hour difference from my fastball. That was the most important thing, especially with how much I throw my fastball. That just made the changeup more and more effective. I chose to change up the grip a little bit to a 2-seam grip with my fingers a little bit split outside the laces for 2 reasons. One, control of this pitch is very comfortable for me. It's all about fingertips. Having fingertips on the laces like so gives me that control over the pitch and gives me a comfort level that I already had with my 4-seam changeup. But most of all, the spin rate of this pitch goes to about the 1800 range, which allows it to fade a little bit more. So I can get swings and misses on pitches that are below the zone a little bit more effectively with that pitch. And you can, or even pitch that looks like it's up and stays a little bit lower than up, guys will swing over it as opposed to under it, and it doesn't carry as much. I was getting just a tick more movement on it, getting some poorer swings on it overall. So I have some examples of the changeup change. So this is a changeup from 2018. This is my four-seam change, and you're going to see that is a changeup that is higher than halfway in the zone and is swung at like a carry fastball, and the change in velocity is what gets the swing and miss. It was perceived to be a fastball up. It turned out to be a changeup, and I got the result that I wanted. Here's another example to Alex Gordon. I had actually I got 1-0 on a fastball, and then I threw 3 straight changeups down and away. And because, like I said, I have a high usage of fastballs, there are very few hitters that expect 3 straight changeups from me, but it's another example of the ball staying on plane, but the change in velocity is what causes the swing and miss. .85 miles an hour, good velo change. That has increased because the fastball and the power on all of my pitches has increased a little bit going into 2020. And finally, we have an example of my new grip with a little bit more of the split fingers and closer to the 2-seam grip on those 2 seams between the horseshoes against Matt Joyce. This was a long at bat as well. There was a lot of fastballs up that were fouled off. That then I got just enough velocity change and just enough fade on it to get a swing over the top as opposed to underneath. Now, if we watch that back again, we'll see that there was just a tiny bit of fade late that the reduction in spin rate causes that actually allowed that to be a swing and miss over the top, even though the pitch wasn't necessarily down. Watch it one more time. So as we talk about on the channel constantly, it is so important to make adjustments as we move through our season. Shout out to Wes Johnson, my pitching coach. It was our first year together, 2019. He showed me all kinds of stuff that I didn't know about myself, all kinds of workouts and exercises to maximize my potential, and really a great person to bounce things off of. And we were constantly working together and making decisions and giving me good feedback. So a lot of this stuff came to fruition because of his guidance. Also huge shout out to Jeremy Hefner, who is now the pitching coach for the Mets. He's going to be amazing over there. Him and I are constantly talking and constantly working through problems and constantly working on our decision making and how we make decisions in games. So, you know, he's helped a lot with my success in my career too. So I wouldn't be where I am without him. A lot of these things has changed. In summary, my changeup grip changed more to a 2-seam, a little bit wider split grip. My slider moved from this side of the horseshoe to this side of the horseshoe to get a little bit of a bigger, harder curveball type break. The curveball has kind of taken a side burner. It may come back in the future, depending on how the feel is on the other pitches. It's never out of question. And the 4-seam fastball maintained or increased its usage this year because of, 1, increased velocity, and 2, the carry and the spin efficiency that has allowed me to get swings and misses on it. I make those decisions on those pitches for those reasons. And moving forward, this is the kit I'm going to take in and make adjustments from there. If you guys liked the video, don't forget to give a thumbs up. If you disliked it, double thumbs down as usual. Don't forget to sub to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a brand new video. Also, throw a follow on Twitter. I am Trevor May. On Instagram, TrevorMay65. And on TikTok, I am Trevor May as well. I do small little baseball tip videos there as well, looking to do more in the future. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, go Twins. See you guys later.